Hello everyone, today I would like to start a project with you that I would like to share on my YouTube channel because for a long time I was really thinking about this, but I never felt any motivation to start this project series, and finally I'm here. I would like to share my experiences in my Spring Boot VIP car rental project. It's going to be like how to say. I would like to build a REST API with the Redis Elasticsearch Kibana inside the Docker container, and we will use PostgreSQL database. And of course, we are going to test our APIs and endpoints in Postman. And basically, for every developer, we are going to use Git version control systems. So, first of all, I would like to share my idea about the project, what I want to do. First, just imagine we are going to have a website and customers are going to look for a car, and they will pick some locations and date and time, and they will just check the cars from the lists, and they are going to choose a car. They will rent this car, and we are going to store the information about the user and the other information about the car. There will be no login and sign up chain, and so we are just going to offer this solution to everyone who wants to use our application. No need for registration, because we are going to take this important information about renting car from the user while they were registering and booking the car, so there is no need to register anyone to our system. And yes, of course, I would like to build some security inside, but we will see how it's going to end up in a day, and we are going to think in advance what kind of project we would like to build together. So, like, we are going to build MVC pattern design. So we are going to have some entities, service repository controller, of course. And I would like to use application.yaml file, not application.properties, because I like that. And we are going to have some request responses folders, and I think this is the like a main structure that I would like to follow. But before I start this project, I just 100% recommend everyone who watch this video, if you are not familiar with the Spring Boot, if you don't know what is behind in Spring Boot, and if you just want to put something on your mind about Spring Boot, it's not a good way to start. You just understand main concepts of Java Enterprise Edition, SA, I just forget the full name of it, Servlet, and the other versions of it, because Java Spring Boot gives you everything what you need to build a REST API. So it doesn't teach you how to catch a fish, it gives you a fish. So it's important to know what is behind Spring Boot. I don't want to do like so many chit chat. I just want to start the project. So the first video, in first episode, we are just going to create our MVC pattern, and we will build some user class, and maybe we can think in advance what are we going to do. So let's get started. First, I just created this very basic Spring Boot project in here, and I have some dependencies in here. You can also add it from while you were creating some new project in here. You can choose Lombok, developer tools, Spring Web, and Java Persist instance, and PostgreSQL driver. That's all what I add to my dependencies, so you will have it when you download it. So like we are having 3.3.2 version of Spring Boot and Java 17. I think that's enough for this POM XML file. As I told you, we are going to have application YAML file. So I'm just deleting this file, and I'm adding application.yaml file in here. Add everything that you have it in, but body. So I'm just having this this application file. Yes, that's okay, we don't need it right now, this one. And in this application.yaml file, we just tell the application you have to start from 8082 because sometimes my 8080 port is occupied for something else. So I just want to use the server from 8082. In Spring, I have a data source from PostgreSQL driver, and we are going to have localhost 5432 VIP rent and my username and password. You are going to have your own database name in here, so you have to create your own database, and you are going to have your own port if you change it, and your username and password. From JPA, Java Percentage Instance, I told to Hibernate, please create my tables when I define my entities. This update means you don't have to create my tables every time when I start my application. It just updates the tables if they change in these tables in my code. So update means I can also define this as a create, but as you can see in here, create the shaman destroy previous data means it will delete all my data from the database and create it again when I just run my application. So I don't want to do this. I just want to make it update and update the schema if necessary. So if I change the code. Show SQL true means when you will see it when we just write some code in our application. They're going to we will have some logs about the SQL from Hibernate. So this is about the show SQL, and I just tell it true because it's good to trace our errors in our code. And properties, there is a validation mode none. It's not very important, I think. And Hibernate, we are going to have a PostgreSQL dialect format SQL to trace our code. It's important, so we should just say true. Okay, we can start from Java, and as you can see our VIP rent application in here. And okay, let's start with the entity model, and we are going to have a model package in here, and we will have entity sub package, and after we are going another package, sorry for this mistake, user and user. Okay, we will have Lombok notations. I will tell you what all they are about, and name users. So the data means I just define this class as a Lombok data annotation class, and we are going to have the getters and setters and all of them by Lombok. Builder is easy way to create this class to build our new instance of this class. And no arguments constructor creates a constructor with no arguments, and all arguments constructor is vice versa. An entity means I define this user class as an entity, so Hibernate will understand that this is going to be a table on the database, and name of this table is going to be users. So I can define user ID in here. This is going to be the ID of the database primary key, and generation type is identity. I can import this class, and I am going to have a column name. I want to check something. Okay, column name is going to be, for example, username is okay for me. I can just give it this is like this, private string username and my password. I can just implement the but no, not right now. We will think about it later. Okay, private string password, and maybe the email. I just get them from GitHub Copilot as fast as it could be. And after that, that's all for this users class. And maybe I can define, let's say we are going to have user types for this project, but we are going to define it later. So I can just go to the repository package of it, and user again in there, and I can define user repository as interface, and it's going to extend the JPR repository. It will take the entity class of the related class, and I'm going to define this class interface as a repository. So this is a main interface that I'm going to have a connection with the database, and we are going to have basic implementations and basic CRUD operations which is available from JPI repository. As you can see in the documentation of JPI repository, there are like a save and flash, delete all and batch, get reference by ID, get by ID. These are all of the methods that the JPI repository have. For example, this CRUD repository, find all, found all by ID, save all. For CRUD repository, there it has save all, find by ID, exist by ID. These are the important methods of the JPI repository. So we are going to use these beneficial methods in here. So when I create my user repository, I can just I would like to also check maybe what can we add to this class. I would like to have an user find by username, maybe. As you can see in here, when I'm just type this username, it will give you the recommendation to me. I can find it by email, identity number, or some conditions, email before something and something. So I can just make it up from here. JPR repository will help me to improve my codability in database. So find by username is enough for me, and maybe I can have find by identity number. So this is good. I can create a service in here, user service, but I would like to create first my interface in here, and in here maybe I can just add some basic lists. User get all users, this is okay for start, and user get user by ID and long ID, user save user, update user, and delete user. But if you notice, if I just but okay, let's do it later. I don't want to just get complicated right now. User service. So when I implement this user service interface, I'm going to have my methods in here, and I define this class as service, and I would like to add my repository in here as a final form. User repository. Okay, while I try to get all my users, I can just create a user list in here. If my users are empty, I can return null, but if I just have my users, I can just turn it to users. After this video, in the second video, I'm just going to change these return types as a result type. So we are going to have some results, and we don't have to just return to users and null. So it's because it's very hard to trace and maintain the code while you were coding. So just have it exactly right here in right now, but we are going to change it. So I also want to find the user, but let's find it as optional. Like if user is present, I can return this user, but okay, replace it. Okay, this is the main part. Right now, if you can just notice, if I want to save a user, I have to give all the fields that I have it in right now. But sometimes in your use cases, the fields that you want to have it in first it could be changeable. So you don't have to get every information from the endpoints to your database. For example, I don't wanna just get some user ID from user endpoint. I just wanna generate it identity and automatically. So I don't have to get some user ID from my request. Basically, I can just create a request folder in here and I can add user request in here. And this is just a basic type of class, and it will have some fields that I really would like to have on my request. I'm just copying this one in here, and for example, I don't want this, and I don't want this one. Rest of this is okay for me. Okay, I can just type like this, and as you can see, when I just go to my user service and change this as user requests and also for update, I don't have to just get user from endpoint. I can just use user requests, and I like having do not have the fields that I don't need for database. For example, when I check the get methods in here, I don't have ID in here because I don't need an ID. I'm going to create it automatically. This is basically what I want to do with the request classes. You can also use data transfer objects for this methodology, but it gets complicated while you were creating some responses also with the user DTO classes, because responses and requests could be different from each other, and you have to maybe change the fields while you were getting some requests, also giving some response. But there are some ways like pawns and crowns in here, because if you have two classes for each entity, for example response and request, it's going to be a very huge class folders. But you can manage each field while you were giving some response and getting some requests. So as I told you, you can choose which type of way you want, and it's up to you, and also for your use cases. If you don't have so much entities, and if your fields are changing while you were some having requests and give some responses, you can think about request response type of endpoint parameters. But if your fields are the same while you were having some requests and giving some responses, you can just use your DTO classes. So I don't want to do so much talking instead of coding, and we can just check to requests methods and fields if they are empty or not, because I don't want to put some empty null data on database. So user get username, but if user.get username null or user.get username is empty, return null. Maybe I can just create. Okay, let's have it right now. I'm going to do the same. Okay, there were no rules in my database. Why do I am missing? Do I have email in here, password, phone number? I didn't check the first name and last name. Okay, if I don't return any null in here, I can create a user instance, and I can create I also use As you can see, builder classes and builder notation works for it, and I can just type the fields that I really would like to have it in here, and created user. So username, identity number, email, password, phone number, first name, last name. It is easy to maintain and read the code while if you use builder, because while you were using some setter and getter in here, as you can see, like sets and these set type of coding, really hard to read which type of field gets some field. You always get complicated while you were reading, but the builder is easy to read which fields does this user class have in here. So I just created the instance of user with the name of created user. I can use my user repository save created user, but I want to use a try catch to have maybe it's not a good way to return user in here, so we are 100% going to change the return type of these methods, because I really didn't like it right now to return null in every position. So if everything is okay, we can just return to created user to the user endpoint. So this is the save user. For updating a user, first we have to find the user from the database we want to update, and when we find it by ID, because we are having user ID from the parameter, we can just check if this user exists. If user is empty, we can just return null in here, but if it is not, we can just change to fields of this. I can also check if something is missing or not, but I really wouldn't like to do this. I can just change the updated user set username like this, and at the same time I'm just checking 368 something is missing in here. Username, identity number, email, password, phone number, first name, last name. Okay, yeah, okay, it's 7. Okay, when I just update my user, I can again use a try catch to save it, and I can show it to user, the updated user. While I'm deleting a user, again I need to find this user from a database what I like to delete, but I can also use a user repository, for example exist by ID notation. This is a method of the CRUD repository in JPA repository. Just returns me the boolean value of if this is exist by ID from a user ID. If this exists, I can just delete by ID, and that's all. Okay, this is the service class that we are going to have it in our project. I am just going to add my controller class in here with the correct packaging name, controller user, and we are going to have user controller in here, and it's going to be a request mapping user / version 1, and it's going to be a REST controller because I'm just developing a REST API, and requirement arguments constructor for private final user service because I am just going to use the service methods that I defined in my user service class. Get mapping for get all users, and I can just import the entities in here, and get all users is okay, and get mapping get user by ID. For save user, I am going to use post mapping public user save user, but right now it's user requests. And for updates I'm going to have user ID. Okay, this is good. And for deleting a user I'm just going to have a user ID. Okay, basically I defined my endpoints as get mapping and post mapping because I really wouldn't like to have my entity endpoints from request mapping notation. I can also use request mapping in here, but I would like to really define the exact type of these endpoints, because getting some information is get mapping, but if you want to save or change something in database you have to use post. Why I don't use delete mapping or update patch mapping or put mapping? Because some browsers doesn't support this kind of mapping methodologies, so basically I use get or post mapping. So I created the all structure for one entity. We can just test our application if everything works well right now. So there is an error, let's check it out. For example, most probably I use this database name for a different project, so I am just going to delete this database and create this with the same name again, and let's try it again. And no property username type. Did you mean username? Okay. The main problem is in the user repository class, because I defined this as a username, but it's going to be a username. You have to give the correct name type to this repository, because it just looks for these fields in your entity class. If you cannot find it, it will give you error. So let's work it again, and yes, it has already started. So let's check our table. I am just going to show you the table in here. We can just see it from here, from the pgadmin4, user ID, email, first name, identity number, last name, password, phone number, username. So let's check our application works correctly. We are going to add our first request in here if my postman allows me, but I don't have any internet connection, so wait a second. Sorry for this shitty ass conditions that I am just trying to take a video. Okay, get all users, and okay, let's have this one user slash, and if I try to have it, as you can see there is 200. Okay, and because there is no user, I didn't see anything. But while I was trying to explain you why do we need some result classes, for example, when I just try to get all users in here, I didn't get any error from here because my status is 200. Okay, but I also didn't get anything else. And this is a problem, because while you are developing some front end and some other code, it's going to be a huge problem to understand your requests okay, or there's some problem, or vice versa. So you have to build a result package for your backend code, and you have to have some based structure to give some responses to user. It's very important. And I'm just going to create a request for the save a user right now. And as I told you, we have to define a body in here. And user request, these are the fields that I'm going to use for testing my application. For username, I'm going to use my name. For password, let's have it this one, not very important right now. For email, phone number, first name and last name actually, and my identity number. If I send it, there's a 200. Okay, and if I just get my all users, what is the problem in here? Why do I don't have any why did it say user didn't work? Well, let's check our user controller in here. User request, return save user version 1. Okay, I'm really curious right now why it didn't work. Save user. Maybe some of them are. So it's, if you don't have a result class, as I told you before, it's so hard to trace your code. First name, last name, identity number, email. Yeah, everything looks okay. Let's check this one. Phone number, first name, last name, identity number. Okay. Password, email, phone number, first name, last name, identity number. I actually don't know. I just want to check my database in here if I have any data. No, I don't have anything else. And well, I just want to delete this conditions. Maybe I also made a mistake in here. So let's send this requests. Okay. What is the problem in here? User get username. I just get the username. No, I didn't get anything else from here. Okay, very good mistake that I do in here. I just realized right now. So yeah, I'm not going to edit this part from the video. I just defined the parameters, but I forget to tell the Spring Boot these are the parameters that I'm looking from the user endpoint. So I have to tell the Spring Boot I'm looking for these parameters from endpoint. Okay, it's a very good mistake. You shouldn't forget about these parameters. Request param is looking for a parameter from a domain URL. But if you are looking for an entity, you have to use a request body. Also, if you want to hide some information from a user from the URL, for example, you are getting some identity number from a user and you want to look for some user information, you shouldn't take this as a parameter. You can use a request body and you can just create a user request or request param and basic class to get somebody information. So if I try it right now, I'm just going to create a new user. As you can see, I just get my user in here. There is with no mistake. So let's create another request. Update user, and it's going to be again posts. Update user. It's going to have a user ID in here. Let's check it. Yes, and it's going to be 1 for updating a user. I'm just going to change the fields as and when I send it, if I get all the users, as you can see, everything is changed. And I just add delete user post method in here. delete user as a parameter. I'm going to get an user ID again, and let's delete the user ID with the second. Status is 200, okay, and I just get the user ID with the 1. So this is the first video of our content, and I know that's very like a fully detailed REST API, and I just want to have it with the fully detailed, and but I can also reconfigure and redefine everything while with your comments. So please do not hesitate to contact with me. In my YouTube channel there is like so many links about my coding and my personal accounts, so you can just get contact with me. You can ask me whatever you want. Sorry for my mistakes and the, like maybe the pain in the ass times about the code. I just try to do my best. See you in the next video. Take care of yourself.